Hi, welcome back to Zoomers the podcast. I'm Isla.
And I'm Eliana, and today, in the light of Memorial Day, which was this past Monday, we're going to be discussing the experiences of war veterans and what the future of the military looks like. So, Memorial Day honors the veterans who have passed away, whether that's in battle or in training or et cetera, et cetera. But we were wondering what happens to those who make it out alive and go back to everyday life. Many of them do go on to build successful careers or go on through the ranks and make something of their lives, but others suffer because of their traumatic experiences.
Yeah, and these experiences can lead to a lot of things like PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, TBI, traumatic brain injury, and depression, which can lead to things like suicide in some circumstances.
Yeah, and the rates of homelessness are very high in war veterans. I think about 12% of the whole entire American homeless population is veterans. Also, many of these people, not all homeless, go through substance abuse and drug issues. And many of them, if not all, go through a little bit of trouble, a little to a lot of trouble assimilating back into everyday life, coming from the stricter regimen of military life to the more fluid slash free aspects of everyday life. So I think both the mental problems and the resulting circumstances are like a never-ending circle. So both of them relate to each other, and that's why it's so hard to get out of.
Yeah, and I feel like some people might think that like going from like a strict schedule to like no schedule or whatever, because you're kind of choosing your life, that might not seem like an issue. But just based on like right now, coming from school to like online learning during like the time of coronavirus, like I've seen so many people like struggling with like, even though the teachers kind of give us a schedule, at least at my school, like so many people struggle with it. So like I think it'd be so much harder in the military, or everything like down to the hour and like minute almost is like very planned, and you're just kind of told what to do. And then you just go back into society and you have to like kind of choose your own life path and decide what you want to do. And that seems like so hard.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it, actually. It's like our situation, but like to the 10th power, the 100th power. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's so do you think, well, a lot of stats show that the pool for potential soldiers and members of the military is getting smaller and smaller as generations go on. Right now, the enlistment age is 17 in America. That's not including like ROTC and junior ROTC, which is like military training kind of thing for students. But the pool is getting smaller and smaller, both because there are less legal citizens in the US, and there are less people who are physically capable, and less people who like pass the mental cuts, or the what's it called? Yeah, the standards, the mental standards. So do you think that says anything about like our generation as a whole?
I think it can. I don't know. I feel like a lot of it kind of has to do with the fact that we're more immune, I want to say, to like some types of propaganda, because like during World War One, there was so much like nationalism, and there was like posters everywhere being like, do this for your country, and all these like different techniques were being used, like be one of us, go off to war, make your country proud.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you saw those types of things today, people would be like, wow, this is so manipulative of the government. But they definitely try and like advertise it by going to our schools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the propaganda just isn't as intense maybe as it used to be.
Yeah.
And also like a lot of people don't really like our government, so they don't really want, because a lot of people feel like when they go off to join the military that they're kind of being, at least this is what I've heard from people, that like they're being used by the government and they're just one of the pawns on their playing field. And if they don't really support the government, they don't really like want to do that and help the people in power. So I feel like it kind of just has to do with like maybe just who's in power right now.
Mhm.
but I don't really know what it's going to look like, or our generation in terms of it, but I feel like a lot of people in our generation, I don't know, at least people I've talked to, joining the military does not seem to be something anyone's really ever considered. I mean, okay, I have one friend who's considered it and she
Uh-huh.
wants to, but like besides that, whenever I think it's ever brought up, no one really seems to like think about it too much.
Yeah, I do think it has a lot to do with like politics because obviously you're fighting for your country and the country holds certain values. And those values might not be what you personally believe in or champion. So yeah, I think our generation is really in touch with what we think is right and being really active and vocal about those things. So it definitely has something to do with it. At my school, we're pretty sports minded, which I don't know if it has like a certain um, like people doesn't have a certain pool to the military just because they're very athletic or if that's just what they are drawn to. But I do realize a pattern when people who grow up with like parents or relatives who are in the military, they are more likely to, or at least from my experience talking to people, they have, uh, they're more comfortable with the idea and are considering it way more than people whose parents weren't in the military or relatives weren't in the military. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, my family is a really big military family,
Uh,
and so I think, like, for a lot of people, like, even my dad who's technically in, like, the British military, I guess that's what it's, like,
yeah,
called.
yeah.
So, like, I mean, it was a completely different country, but I feel like a lot of people in my family, like, did, and so, like, not like you were expected, but I feel like it was definitely, like, a viable option that, like, a lot of my family members seemed to, like, more consider. I mean, I know in some circumstances, like, my mom, the reason why she did join was not because she wanted to necessarily, it's because, like, back then, the military would pay for, like, your entire college tuition, and so, like, and she didn't really have the money to pay for it, so
Uh,
she thought that'd be a good way, like, even though it was, like, really strenuous for her, it was like a good way to pay for college. And so it was like a good option. And so even though they don't really do that today, I don't know, maybe that's why they had, I don't know, like how much has the military like grown? Has it grown a lot since like back then?
well, I guess there's less need for soldiers. I know there's no more draftings, like no more like forced
Yeah.
deals with the military. But it's also
Yeah.
because there's no more war or like, well, there is war, but not heavily involving our country. Um, yeah, for a long time. But I guess if you look at historically, then like the military had to find ways to like draw people in. So I guess paying for college was part of that. And then even before that, like World War I time, it was like all national pride and protecting your country and all that propaganda stuff you mentioned earlier. So it's kind of all about the time period too, I think, because like the military definitely has evolved, but both with like tech. I think we need less soldiers now or less people because of the tech that we have. We don't need manpower. We just need, I don't know, more brain power and the tech to back it up.
I can see that. I think that yeah, there definitely is still a lot of people though that do go off to fight and do those types of work. But yeah, I think yeah, because like I feel like today, at least from what I've seen, like the type of propaganda they use is definitely more subtle, and I feel like the way they use it is through like social media and stuff where they have like military accounts because I used to follow some of them and they would sometimes be posting like, hey, this is where you can go enlist, like support your country. And I was kind of like, yeah, they're definitely advertising it, they're definitely encouraging it, and they're like, our proud soldiers fight with us. So I feel like they're kind of the same as like the type of thing they used to, but
Hmm.
I feel like it's more subtle. I feel like I'm making it sound like it's really obvious, but they're more
Yeah.
subtle. I feel out the propaganda, but the accounts online definitely like help to advertise that the military is an option and you can join. I remember like seeing some interesting things on the account. Like, I remember on this one post, it was like they were like talking about how they're raising like the age or something to like how cigarettes can be purchased while you're at like a base or a camp or something. And I remember like the whole comment section was totally just like all these teenagers being like, well, I was gonna join, but now that you said that, now I'm not going to. And I'm like, okay, like, I guess they're like, that's kind of interesting. I guess that like the rules and stuff, that makes a difference whether people join or not, from like our generation to like that older side of it. But I remember seeing a man in the comment section being like, I'm this old, can I like serve in the military? I want to, but I think I'm not allowed to. And they're like, yeah, you're too old, sorry, you had to be like this age. And I think that's kind of interesting to see that there's all these like old people, like, or like he wasn't even old at all, but like he was too old to join the military. And so I think that's interesting, like how limited their pool is and how there's people willing outside of it. Oh, also, this is something I thought that was interesting. During like this whole like COVID-19 outbreak thing, like my grandparents were contacted by the military saying like, hey, you used to serve and now is an essential time with COVID-19 outbreak. So like come back to the military and help do this. But he's like way too old and like he wouldn't be allowed to if he contacted them to be like, hey, I want to do this. So I thought it was weird that they were reaching out to him when he wouldn't be like somebody like viable to do that. And so I thought that was kind of weird, but like I guess I just didn't realize how like old he was. But I don't know. They might be, I don't know, maybe they're running out of people or something.
No,
They're contacting like people that old, but I don't know. They definitely seem to have a pretty small pool.
no, like I think that whole thing was probably definitely a mistake. That's not like the first time I've heard of like the government messing something up, like kind of like disregarding age, because my great grandma who was like over 100, almost like 105 at the time, she doesn't even speak English. She got called in for jury duty. And like like we were all just really confused because like A, she didn't speak English and she's way too old to like move around and stuff. So I don't know. That probably might have been a mistake. But yeah, I think that's really weird because I don't know, definitely there are people like above, I don't know, age 40, 50 who are like really, really fit and like would be a great fit for the military. You know, like whereas me, I guess I'm almost 17, like another year. Like I feel like I'm not like ready for that kind of thing. And there are people who are way older who would. So there are definitely a lot of exceptions. That makes me kind of wonder why they would make such strict cutoffs, you know?
I guess it's like physical ability and stuff. I guess like at a certain age is just problematic. And also like I think they usually want to recruit people like pretty young so they can like stay in the ranks for a while and so they can keep them in the military longer, because like to move up through the ranks you have like, even if you're like good at a position, they won't move you up. At least this is from what I've heard, you have to just serve the time to get moved up, and that's how you get moved up. So I guess they're trying to like attract the like younger people so like they can keep them there.
Sure.
But it's definitely a commitment you have to make. Like I can see a lot of upsides to the military besides like the obvious benefits they advertise to get you to go. Like there's also other things like traveling, because when you get like deployed to like countries, you can like kind of get to travel them. You don't have like a ton of time, but you do have some time. And like you get really in shape and you're with a unit that will like kind of defend your life and be there for you. So like I feel like that's a pretty cool experience in general, but it's definitely a huge sacrifice to make because your life, you could literally go off to war and die. Like your life is on the line.
Yeah. Do you think like the age or yeah, like the age that like the younger age has anything to do with like the military, like both like seniority being at like almost like a prize to like try to climb up and attain, and like the military wanting to kind of like train us from a young age kind of and like kind of get us to support their cause. I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, but like almost like like training like puppies from like a young age. Like if you train them one way, that's like the only way they're gonna know. So I don't want to say like the government's like blindsiding us, or do you think that has anything to do with like how young the age is, the enlistment age is?
I mean, like, maybe, but I feel like if they wanna be more effective in that, they should, like, I don't know, make more, like, school education being, like, talking more about the military. Because like, I don't think when we were really in middle school, did we really have, like, the military ever like, I don't remember them ever, like, talking to us or anything.
Nah.
Like, it's only been once in high school where, like, the Air Force came and did, like, this music performance, and, like, you can go and talk to, like, different branches of the military if you wanna talk to them about, like, what their lives are like in that branch, but, like, you have to specifically reach out for that, and I don't think a lot of people do that because I remember coming out of a Dartmouth college meeting, there was, like, there was some Army people waiting afterwards to, like, talk to people, and then they went in, and I don't remember seeing anyone come in to talk to them. So, like, I don't know, maybe I just was there too early or something because, like, I had to go back to class because it was during class, but, like, it's definitely not a thing that, like, everyone knows about and is interested in,
Mhm.
and I feel like if they really want more people, they should definitely, like, somehow, like, target us when we're younger, but I don't really wanna say that because like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like it's not right to, like, make kids think that way, and, like, we should just have our own choices. Like, I guess it's okay for them to, like, show us our choices, but I feel like sometimes people try and push certain things on us.
Yeah, I think right now even like the whole like traditional college like experience is being pretty pushed on us. Like anything other than like a 4-year college right after high school is kind of like out of the ordinary. So I think like that's honestly like something that we're not brainwashed into, but like something that's kind of a given in our society right now. So like right now I can't even imagine myself doing anything else. Like I don't know what other things you might do, like a gap year, traveling abroad isn't as like taboo or whatever. Um, but you're traveling or studying abroad is another option, or like community college and then transferring and stuff. Like everything has its own benefits. But right now, like the 4-year college thing is like kind of imprinted into our brains. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, I remember freshman year, I talked to one of, like, my newer friends, and I was just like, I don't know, college was just always on my mind as it still is today. And I think I just remember, like, casually being like, "Hey, where do you think you're gonna go to college?" And I remember she was like, "I'm not gonna go to college." And, like, I tried not to show it, but I was so shocked in that moment. And that was the first time I think I realized, like, not everyone goes off to college. Like, it's not a thing. It's just something like I've created as my like goal. And I feel like it's not really my creation. It's like what society has just put on us. And I feel like it becomes more of a thing because you look at like the acceptance rates to all these colleges over the last 40 years. And like I think they started dropping dramatically, like, I wanna say, like, 25 years ago, and they've been just dropping so much since, and in the last, like, 10 years, they've just been, like, so low at, like, these prestigious colleges, and they're just going slightly lower and lower every year.
Hmm. Yeah, that's crazy to think about. Like I watched like this vlogger. He went back to his high school teacher and basically like his teacher was saying that before this student, he had thought every student should go to college, but like some kids just aren't cut out for like school. And like I think it was like easy for me to accept the whole for college thing because I really do like school and I like learning. So for me, that was like an easy thing. I feel like if I had a choice, I would have picked this anyway. But but I do think that not every student is cut out for like the traditional path, and there are definitely kids who would thrive in a military environment. So yeah, but I do think there are less of us who would be suited for that, super suited for a military environment, just because our generation struggles with a lot of like mental health problems, and there are increasingly more of us who like this is the stat, like increasingly more of us who are more introverted, and some of us and we like to take less risks, like statistically. I'm sure there are many of us who are risk takers and like seeking thrill, but there are quite a few of us who want to stay comfortable.
Yeah, I definitely think our generation is a lot more about comfort than taking risks. And I don't know if this is just something of our generation, but like my mom always makes fun of it at like my school. Like a lot of people show up to school in pajamas, and my mom thinks it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And she like kind of makes fun of it, and she's like, I would have never done that in my day. Like we had like dressed so like properly and stuff. And so I guess that kind of does show like our generation is like that. And I don't know, the military in general, it just seems like a whole thing. And there's just so many repercussions when you come outside of it. I know that the government does try and do like a good job of like trying to make it like beneficial for people. Like if you come out of it and you have an injury out of it, you get like compensation. Like my family members who are injured, they get some money, but I mean, it's not like that much, but like they still get something. So that's like nice. And like, I know at least in our county, there's this like shelter you can go to if you are a veteran, I think, because I learned this through my training at the suicide hotline I used to work at.
Uh-huh.
And basically, if you go there and you show you like your card, because everyone has a card, like they can give you like, because they have limited beds, but usually they have like some that are open if you can come in and you can go and sleep there, and they can also give you some supplies and stuff if you need something. I don't really remember too much about it, but I remember that's a resource that they do have, and I think there's a lot of other like shelters like this for veterans in other parts of the country. They're not like the same affiliation, but like they still exist, and so I guess that's like pretty good, because like if like there's so many veterans who are like out there and homeless, like they really need things like that. And like it's just hard, like if you've gone off to war and experienced such a traumatic thing, to come back and find stability in your life, like you kind of need that extra help. And so I think it's good. I mean, I don't know if the government, they could probably do more to help. I feel like you can always do more to help, but at least they are moving in a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's really good that people are doing that, because, like, I don't think, like during World War I and II, PTSD was called shell shock and then battle fatigue. I learned this like literally 40 minutes ago from watching an episode of Criminal Minds, but I'm really excited to use it here. But like those aren't like medical terms at all, and people kind of like dismissed it as like people going crazy after war, and like not they like I don't think they even use the word trauma probably. Like it was just like, oh yeah, he's kind of mad. He's going mad after war. So I think that's also kind of a stigma around war. It's like a negative thing, but there are a lot of other negative things, like um I don't know, like the whole like strict regimen of war, or not war, like the military is not something that's really appealing to like Gen Z, who seeks comfort, I guess, and isn't really used to going through that kind of thing. Even in school, I feel like most of our schools are not like that anymore. Like they're pretty laid back, even in discipline. I think like me going to a private school, like probably like at least in our area, one of the most strict. And even so, like I don't think can even compare to, I guess, like military school or something like that. But military schools like are like those schools that are feeder schools right into the military. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's very different, and I'm really curious about like what those kids experience on a daily basis, and like how that affects like their development and like choosing to go to the military.
Yeah, because I'm sure like being in a school that you're just so brought up in a certain aspect, and you are kind of just trained for that. And like I feel like if you go to a school like that, why would you like not go to the military? Like you're definitely going to. So that's like a good way for them to recruit like our younger generation. And there's definitely a lot of people who are interested in things like that, because like when I went to go like watch the blue like angels fly over San Francisco,
Uh-huh.
there was like a tour. You could take like a tour of like one of their ships that was there.
Uh-huh.
And like I remember like we were waiting in line to get in, and like the group right behind us was like one of like the military school type things, and they had like their like uniforms on and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I remember seeing that, and I kind of was like, oh, I knew those like schools were a thing, but like I just never really thought about it before. And so
Mhm.
I thought it was like an interesting experience. And yeah, I just I I don't know, like, I feel like what does their school look like? Because I've never really, like, researched it or, like, thought about it, but, like, I'm sure they have, like, actual class subjects, but, like, they also probably know a lot about, like, war and stuff.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy to think about that, like, those specialized schools, I guess, um, like, learn so much about, like, war and combat, like, that we don't know anything about, like, going to, I don't know, like, Catholic school or public school. So that's crazy how, like, even within our generation, there are certain, like, subsets who are growing up, like, with that whole military mindset already. So that's gonna be interesting to see, because um, I think that since our generation is like the most diverse to date, both like racially and ethnically, and like in terms of our interests, and I think that like more types of people are more accepted or like more normal. I feel like there are less, what's it called? Like um, certain types of people. Because I don't know, I feel like just like looking at old movies or like old pictures and things, like you can kind of see the type of people who were like, I don't know, like who did go off to the military and stuff, and like those kids are the ones who are kind of brought up in a military family and like gone through that their whole life. And since there are less of us now, or and more of us who are more, I don't know, like politically aware, I think that's why like, many of us like lean towards not going or yeah, not enlisting.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, when you don't have that, like, background, I guess it's just not an option that you really think about. And yeah, definitely back then they were definitely I don't know, at least we watched a movie in history class. I don't know how historically accurate it was.
Uh-huh.
It definitely touched on things like the like shell shock that you were talking about, and we learned a lot about World War I and stuff. And I thought it was interesting that like PTSD, like that term didn't exist before like World War I, and it didn't exist until way after it, until they actually made like a term for it. And that's just crazy because like we have so many like words today for like problems, but there's probably some problems that people are having that might have been misdiagnosed and will recognize like years and years from now as like a totally different thing we didn't know about. And so, and like that's kind of a problem that you're like diagnosed with the wrong thing, because like you could be doing the like things that are trying to help you, but like they in essence have like no impact on you.
Right. I do think that we're more aware about like mental problems or mental issues, and we can kind of like be aware of that and get help if we need to, which is a great thing. So I kind of see a question like back then, like I'm sure there are many more undiagnosed or like unknown cases of mental issues that kind of just went unaddressed because they were never talked about. And that's still kind of an issue today, probably way less, definitely way less. But yeah, I kind of see a question like if like a kid back then like was aware that he was going through a mental problem or he or she is going through a mental problem, like maybe they wouldn't have enlisted or would have told somebody and like would have been exempted or something like that. So it kind of makes you question that whole like dynamic and um, kind of like fitting into a box that's tailor made for battle, because I know like you have to go through like now you have to like pass like a physical test and like a mental strength test and all these things. So that probably cuts down on the population a lot just because people are diagnosed. That doesn't mean there are more people with issues, just means that there are more people who know that they have issues. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think, yeah, mental health is an issue. And I think sometimes, like, in our generation, it becomes like, I don't know, like, I feel like sometimes people self diagnose themselves too much to the point because there's so much information online and stuff. And so people be like, I have this. And I feel like that's also kind of a problem. But, like, yeah, I think it's hard, especially with all the pressures that are put on us so young, to like be expected to do so much and not and like be fine mentally. Like
Right.
there's a reason why not like a ton of us are like just not thriving right
Right. And like, if like especially like during this time, like some people who are extroverts are normally very, very social. Like they fall into like this state of loneliness and like not talking to many people. So like it's like I feel like it's an even bigger issue right now because people are missing their friends and stuff. But yeah, it's something to think about. I do think like the whole mental health issue. I don't want to dismiss anybody's like concern for themselves. It's probably better to be overprepared than underprepared when it comes to like mental health. But I do think that a lot of like like unofficial mental health, like I don't know, like information out there kind of caters to people and like makes you think that you have a mental issue. It's almost like those like zodiac things where it kind of just tells you you're like, oh, like you're so underappreciated and you're like a diamond in the rough. Like of course you're gonna like relate to that because you want to think that you're a diamond in the rough. You know, and like I'm not saying like people are not special. I'm sure everyone is special, but it kind of caters to that, and people are like, oh yeah, I feel sad. Maybe I am depressed. So like, I think that also is an issue to talk about later, like self-diagnosing and since I don't know, it's such I don't know. I feel like a lot more people are yeah, a lot more people have mental issues and I don't want to invalidate that at all. But I do think when people are younger and don't really know that much about mental health, it can be hard to tell the difference between, I don't know, feeling a certain emotion and having like a real problem, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just feel very cold out here with the whole zodiac thing you just said because can I just say that's literally always me, like, because like they definitely do generalize all their statements so like it can fit a majority of the population.
Right.
But the fact that it's so relatable, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a total Aries. Like I just like I embody it so much because like and then I look at like other traits and I'm like, no, I'm totally not like that. Like I don't know. Part of me kind of wonders if I've read too much stuff about like an Aries growing up because I was definitely invested in it as a child that it like kind of made me like manifest destiny like that created who I was. And it's kind of an issue I feel like sometimes because I'm like I don't want some of these traits like at all, but I have them.
But like you have like manifested it like into your being.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the topic for another time. We'll definitely talk about this like soon. That's a really interesting topic. But yeah, I do think like the whole mental health issue is contributing to the smaller pool of potential military, I don't know, trainees or new enlistees, I think. Yeah. So that's definitely, I don't want to say it's a problem because obviously as tech develops um, and like hopefully there's more world peace and less need for like more and more soldiers are fighting, um, like the enlistment or drafting process will not need to be as I don't know, not like it was gonna like need less attention just because like I don't know, like they don't need as much people. But as of right now, I do feel like I'm seeing more and more like ads on YouTube and like I think the Navy came to my school to do like a pull-up contest, and I think that whole mentality, like competition and stuff. Well, I think that the military is trying to cater to our generation's like values, and I do think our generation is very competitive. Like I know I am, and we're pretty sports oriented and that kind of thing. And like I don't know, like winning is a huge thing, especially at my school. We're very sports focused. So I think that the military, I don't know if they like really know this. I'm sure they have like psychologists and stuff who are on their advertising team, but I, I don't know. Like it seems like they're really catering to every part of like Gen Z. Like they're on social media and they're coming and they're holding contests for people to I don't know win things and they're coming and they're kind of I don't know giving like feeding into our like our culture kind of. I don't want to call our generation a culture, but like we definitely have like a certain set of values that we embody, like as a whole. I'm not saying everybody does, but like as a whole, I feel like we are competitive and like with each other, like both academically and in like sports and stuff. And we are like on social media a lot. So I think the military is really trying to like get us in based on our values and what we are. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, I feel like every person I almost have talked to, like, everyone has called themselves a competitive person. And so, like, that definitely leads me to believe that, like, our generation is competitive. I don't think there's like a single person I can think of. Maybe it's just that I surround myself with competitive people, but like, I just feel like everyone I know is really competitive.
Yeah, like I don't know if this is like, I don't think competition or like that whole like aspect of our culture is really like something that you're born with or whatever. Like I think it's like a thing that's kind of developed, whether it's like within your household with sibling rivalry or like as you get older. I know that I was not as competitive when I was littler, and now like I don't know, like I feel pretty bad like when like I don't like my team loses at something or like I get like a worse grade than somebody else and I feel kind of like down on myself. So I think that whole mentality like does feed into like the military, like and their whole like idea of I don't know competition and winning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
for
know
sure.
if that was a thing with other generations. I don't think it was as big of a thing, especially now with like more kids, like less colleges, that kind of thing. Like I think that's like one of the biggest areas of competition. Like kids want to do more and more to get into college. So that's like one of the biggest things that I see with our generation.
Yeah, for sure. Like all the college scandals and stuff, like everyone will like, not everyone, but like a lot of people will do so much, like even all this like illegal stuff just to get into college. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of scary to think about. Like if people do that much for like for themselves, like and then like America has this whole like team player mentality as well. Like what are they gonna do when they are part of a team, you know? Like it's kind of crazy to think about because I don't know, like more people are definitely like stronger than one person by themselves. So yeah, like this whole like idea and like America and it's all its values of like making something of yourself and like coming from the ground up, like capitalism, all this stuff like feeds into our heads and like we're kind of like, oh yeah, like I have to be better both for myself and like relative to other people. So yeah, I don't want to say that's something that like, the military embodies because it's all around us anyway. But yeah, it's really everywhere.
Yeah, that mindset's definitely all around us. Like when people get a bad grade on a test at like my school, like or
Mhm.
like even if it's bad for them, I know like people, especially me too, I can't help myself comparing myself to like other people and being like, well, they did better, why couldn't I? But like you shouldn't focus on that because it's your personal best is not someone else's personal best.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of unhealthy to just obsessively focus on that. And that's some advice that I'm trying to listen myself on, but
Mhm.
which is really hard, but it's definitely a work in progress.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what our generation I think looks like. And I think that's all we're going to say today about the military. And so we'll see you next week.
Bye.